So we saw what kind of impact corruption has on organizational structures. But along with corruption comes other things which have their own implications and bring their own dangers. The list is long. We have criminalization. As more and more people in power turn to crime. And crime becomes the norm. And nobody is punished for their crimes because of the impunity that prevails. There is money laundering. It is very important. You cannot have corruption without money laundering. You can have very small scale corruption with very small scale money laundering. But you cannot have large scale corruption with no money laundering. And this money laundering usually happens through global networks. And these global networks are linked to particular types of activities, some of which could be mentioned are mining, extraction of minerals, illegal arms trading, smuggling of drugs, gold, and also gaming, casinos. These are simple facts that you can ascertain for yourself by studying how the global economy operates. Then there's suppression of information. Information that should be available to the public in order to make their own decisions about their lives and about their future is simply not available. It is suppressed because if that information were to come out, the corrupt and criminal activities that are being engaged in will also begin to show and will be established. So access to information becomes very difficult and increasingly difficult. Then, as I already told you, there is suppression of opposition and dissent. If you disagree with what is happening, and if you oppose what is happening, you will be suppressed. Very simply, you will be kidnapped, you will be tortured, you will be raped, and you will be killed. When we talk about suppression, that is what we are talking about. There is another kind of more civilized suppression as well, where your dissent and your opposition is muted. What you say is not published or broadcast. What you write is not published. That is another kind of suppression that happens in another world. But where we live, suppression happens the way I just described. And of course, there is intimidation. People are frightened with threats. Stones may be thrown at your houses. You may be assaulted. Intimidation. And it begins to increase. So people flee the country sometimes, if they can afford to. Death squads emerge. I think all of you have heard about these white vans. Death squads are people who commit murder in an organized way under the instructions of somebody who wants those murders carried out. It's a particular kind of murder. It's an organized killing. It is not a contract killing, because contract killings are usually matters of money. But death squads operate as tight organizations which are based on loyalty and mutual support. And there are complex systems of give and take, where favors are owed and obligations must be met. Again, if the government is serious about re-establishing democracy and the rule of law, it is necessary to investigate how these death squads emerged, who the people were who were involved in it. And these people have to be punished. There have been disappearances. Disappearances happen wherever criminalization and corruption and criminalization occur. You can look at the whole world and you will find that in places where there are high levels of corruption, there is criminalization, and where there is criminalization, disappearances occur. People disappear. Basically, they are kidnapped and killed. You know, you saw these kind of things happening. Then there are murders. There are murders everywhere. But under normal circumstances, if there is a murder, that murderer is tracked down, prosecuted, and punished. But in a situation where corruption and criminalization are rife, murderers go free, and sometimes the murder is blamed on somebody else, who is then arrested and charged. And after a while, proceedings fall below the radar. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody hears about the case. So these are the type of murders that you find increasing in this kind of situations. Then there are illegal arrests. According to the law, you cannot be arrested without reason. And in fact, you should be told the reason. But here comes a situation where anything could be a reason for your arrest. And what happens after arrest is torture, rape, death while in custody. These are serious issues. And unless these issues are addressed and prevented, you cannot think for even a moment that you are living in a civilized society. So this gives you an idea of what has happened. I mean, most of you probably know what actually has happened. And what it really brings you up against is the fact that all this has to be undone. And ways have to be found to prevent this from happening again. And that cannot be done unless everybody who can understand what went wrong comes forward with their ideas of how it can be put right. And there may be times when they actually have to volunteer their services to do something about it. I have no idea of how much of work and what kind of work is going to be required to sort this problem out. But one thing I am certain of, and that is it cannot be sorted out without the involvement and the participation and the contributions of every single citizen of this country. Please keep that in mind and begin to think of what you can do, and most of all, begin to share your ideas about what must be done and how it can be done in order to prevent a recurrence of what we have gone through, especially over the last few years.